up, guys? We're back. What about this? What about that? We got another episode here for you, and we're going to be talking about movies. The one thing that we can never seem to agree on. I'm producer Josh.
I'm Travis.
I'm Keith.
I'm Kyle.
So the topic is indie film versus big Hollywood blockbusters. So Steven Spielberg said last year, he's quoted as saying that the model for the Hollywood blockbuster is not sustainable. So if there's a year when a Hollywood blockbuster came out and it did not make its money, that the industry would start to implode on itself. Obviously, he wasn't taking into account Disney buying Fox and Marvel and all that stuff. But that brings a good point, though. There's a divide between indie films and blockbusters. And what do you guys think of, like, who should the future of the film industry go to in terms of storytelling, creativity? Like, where do you guys stand on that?
Wes Anderson.
Wes Anderson just does the next Star Wars.
He does all the films.
Josh, by the way, you came in. I just want a side note. You came in hot on that intro. you were like Steve Harvey.
Yes.
I felt like 8 Mile.
Yeah.
Mom spaghetti.
Yeah.
So is what you're asking basically, is the Hollywood blockbuster going to eventually be no more and it's going to go more like independent?
Yeah. Do you think that there's going to be a renaissance in people wanting original material as opposed to something that a big studio is putting millions of dollars into and is sticking to a formula, like Star Wars movies?
Yeah,
very formulaic.
I'm going to say I don't think blockbusters will ever go away as like a concept, as like a thing that people want to watch. I think the options are going to reduce. So I think we're going to have Marvel movies forever. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to have Star Wars movies forever.
So is it possible?
And there's going to be like a disaster film every other year.
Yeah,
and that's it. Like those are our blockbusters.
Is it possible to say, in a nutshell, that we will have independent films and Disney will continue to make the blockbusters?
Pretty much. I think that's kind of what I'm thinking.
That's almost how it is today, though. I mean, even like the big budget rom-coms are very few and far between.
Yeah, because like the most successful rom-com of last year was The Big Sick.
Right.
And that was an indie film.
I didn't see that.
It was good.
I never saw it.
But that goes to like what qualifies as an indie film, because Fox had Fox Searchlight and they called those indie films, but those still had budgets of over $20 million. So
I think what qualifies it as an indie film is, was it good?
That's what qualifies.
Was it good?
I mean,
Yeah.
Maybe budget, maybe the amount of budget, like 10 million and under is indie.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think I agree with Keith. It's never going to go away. I think my mind goes to the fact that movie theaters are all now serving beer on tap.
That's right.
It's experience because they're competing with all the other ways in which
with your home.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Right.
I've been watching Peaky Blinders,
right.
and so I go, man, this is great. I pay a couple bucks a month, and it's like I'm getting this awesome experience. Personally, I'm not a guy that's gonna go watch the next Marvel. I'm not a guy that is gonna. I'm not that guy. So for me, as I'm like, those could go away tomorrow, and I don't care.
Have you ever seen a Marvel movie?
Yeah.
What? Which one?
I don't know.
Batman Returns.
You have to name some, and I know. Oh yeah, Batman.
That's not Marvel.
What is that?
That's DC.
DC.
I've seen DC.
Marvel is like Avengers, Iron Man, Spider-Man.
Yes.
Okay.
Then I have, but not like it's kind of like a Saturday accident.
Like you saw it on TNT.
Yeah, like I don't know
I
don't know if I've ever lost money.
You've never intentionally done it.
Yeah, but I got sucked in.
Yeah.
So for
Yeah.
me to get sucked in, I'll never forget. We were watching. Is it something with like the Hulk or something?
Yes,
like that?
Yeah.
Avengers.
And
probably.
I don't know why I was watching. It was like a Spider-Man thing, and I don't.
We're going all over the place now.
Whatever, man. I don't know. and so I'm sitting there watching this, which is very out of character for me. And Amanda, my wife, comes in and goes, "What are you? Oh my god!" And she starts roasting me. But there's a hint of a love story, and all of a sudden, I changed the channel. She goes, and she snapped at me. She said, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, they got you."
That's
Yeah.
it. They'll draw you in to where like you're like, I don't even like this, but if I watch this long enough, like I gotta know how it ends.
So there's the story. I like again, as I don't think it's ever gonna go away. I just don't know that they'll be able to pull the big I don't
Well,
know.
I
Or
think there will be, like I said, I think there's going to be, I would call them tentpole franchises, right? There's always going to be certain ones that big studios are going to have that will always draw money. Like Star Wars will always make $1 billion. Not always $1 billion, but like Star Wars is always going to make hundreds of millions of dollars. That's just going to happen.
I think it might
Right.
always make $1 billion.
Well, yeah, and like Marvel movies are always going to make money because people have invested in it and all this sort of stuff. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. And like you can make those forever, and people will always be interested in that, or something similar to it, right? I think it'll be that for a long, like for the next generation. But I mean, who knows? Maybe in 30 years, it's something.
Well,
else.
and I
don't
think
know. But-
that's because those aren't just films.
Right.
There is a culture surrounding
right, exactly.
that.
I think that's so. Your blockbuster ones are going to have, yeah. To your point, Kyle, it's going to be something that exists not just in the theater but outside the theater as well. I mean, Disney's making a Star Wars land. That's not going away.
Right.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think Disney's also caught on to the fact that like there is a lot of good indie talent out there. So look at like James Gunn.
Right.
They recruited him for Guardians of the Galaxy. Taika Waititi.
Right.
Kenneth Branagh. You know, his run on Thor was not too awesome, but like still he was the first time they dipped into the indie pool to get a.
Right. Yeah, and so I think you'll find, and so in terms of your question, like where's storytelling going? I think storytelling kind of has always existed and will continue to exist in the indie film part of it because.
Well, is it
The thing
what
ab-
does the audience want?
thing
What do the
about-
masses
thing
want?
about
Is that what
Marvel,
you're asking?
Yeah, well, the thing about Marvel and Star Wars is the stories aren't necessarily original. They're also not supposed to be, right? I mean, the original Star Wars, George Lucas's one was literally the hero's journey plotline in space. Like that's what that was, right? So it's not an original, and it's not meaning it's bad. It's just the point isn't the story. The point is the spectacle. Those films are always about spectacle, and it's like so. Here's what I would say. It's like you asking, will people want to eat dessert or will they want to eat a great meal, right? They're always going to want dessert. People are always going to want sugar, right? That's what a Marvel is. It's candy, right?
Yeah.
And people will always want to eat that. That's never going away. But are people's, and to carry the analogy, are people's palates getting more and more refined where they're only wanting that once or twice a year rather than every other week?
Yeah, well, because if you notice too, like with the Marvel and Star Wars, like those are the only films that big studios are producing that are actually making money. So you have other like franchises, like what was it, the Resident Evil, Underworld, like those ones where back in the day you used to be able to just pump these movies out endlessly and they made money, but now people are getting tired of them.
But is that because
Never
we finally have another option?
Yeah, well, and I
Something
think
like Netflix, is that what you're thinking? Or
Or no, just like the indie, like people even going like, oh, I'm gonna go make an indie film. I don't care about that because I can do this over here.
Yeah.
And there's a culture around that, and there's an audience, and I think that's what I guess I did. Just my question was, are you guys asking what are the masses going to want in 10 years, in 5 years? Is that part of the question? Like as to like
Yeah.
what like
Yeah,
are
yeah.
people's palates being refined? Which is
Or-
are we saying that? Because we are getting into indie films or the story, the narrative, the originality, the authenticity.
or is all that stuff going, even Blockbusters, which is a weird thing to think about it, or is it really all just going to the streaming services?
Yeah.
Right? Because we were talking about, I think on our last episode, you were talking about Bright, right? And that was supposed to be like a huge event movie, you know, and it was on Netflix,
Yeah.
right? So it's not, that's now, I mean, it's a Will Smith movie.
Yes,
right? He
right.
made $100 million for like 5 years in a row.
Have you
What do
seen it?
No, I haven't.
It's so good.
But the
So-
purpose of it was to release it in that.
Yeah, so
on that,
to-
Right, and so that's a big question too. And so not only indie films, but are like streaming services
Taking
doing
over.
the same thing?
Well, because they're
Right,
going,
yeah.
what's the real question? How much money can we make here? What's the easiest way to make money?
Well, and then Netflix
Really?
isn't concerned
Yeah,
about
yeah.
Netflix isn't concerned about box office numbers. They're concerned
No.
about subscription services.
yeah.
Exactly.
So
But
as
these
long as they
guys
have the
go-
same amount, they don't care.
But
or
yeah,
more.
so these guys go, are people more likely to get up and go out? Or are they only going to do it on Christmas Day when they have nothing to do?
Right,
Yeah.
and those Netflix originals used to not be that big of a thing. You'd be like, oh, it's kind of like a low budget if like Netflix itself.
And then
But
they made
now like
Daredevil.
Netflix originals, Hulu originals, Amazon originals have established themselves
Right.
like these are actual like
they've
films
won,
like
and they've won
studios.
awards, and they've like
Oh,
right,
yeah.
that are like they're legitimate, like they're making legitimate films now.
Yeah, like Manchester by the Sea, like that was an Amazon original
Was it
film.
really? I didn't know that.
Didn't cost that much money to make, and it ended up winning a whole bunch, or getting at least a lot of
That was
nominations
with,
for things.
that was with
Casey
Casey
Affleck.
Affleck.
I love him.
I know Trav has a soft spot in his heart for Casey.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, come on, man.
Ocean's
Good Will
11.
Hunting.
Ocean's 11, man.
Yeah, Good Will Hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I have my burger? That was an indie film, right?
Speaking of the oceans, sorry, this is an aside. Have you seen the trailer for Ocean's 8?
I did. This has nothing to do with the fact that it's an all-female cast, but I'm just not interested because I got burnt out after Ocean's 13.
You're
Yeah,
just over the
I was just
Oceans
over
concept,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, there's
I
a
think-
new Oceans?
No, with all women.
I
Sandra
thought you were
Bullock.
about to say with all white people.
Yeah. Well, it's actually not. But
Yeah.
Almost.
But
Yeah.
I think she plays like his Danny Ocean's sister. I think that's and she's
Far
running
more
her
clever.
running her probably. No, I don't. No, but to your point, I can see what you're saying, Josh. But that was an aside.
Josh, thank you, because 13 should be excommunicated from the world.
I
worst.
thought 13 was better than 12.
Oh, no, see?
no.
Wait, what was 12? Sorry,
12 was in Paris.
No, that one was good.
That
Yeah.
was hot.
I'm
What was
assuming that
13?
if you
that
like
was Al Pacino.
Thir-
if you
Yeah.
liked Ocean's
Yeah.
13, you also liked Spider-Man 3.
No, I
In
was thinking,
WWE.
I was thinking of the reverse. I was thinking that 13 was the Europe one, and the Europe one
Got
is
it.
always underrated. I think people
Me too.
bash it more than
Me too.
Yeah.
Your favorite food is Cheeto fingers, which is not the,
The
Cheetos, but the
aftermath.
dust left on your fingers. Yeah,
I'm only eating
I was going
these
to
to
say
get to the fingers.
or bugle fingers.
come on.
All right, so I think
Close to home.
you know what I started thinking about when you said streaming. It's almost like this is interesting with culture in general. It's like everything's streaming.
Yeah.
Food. You have all of these. I mean, like
No,
you
no,
don't have to
you mean
leave the
it's-
house. Like
Streaming,
Right.
streaming food.
So the image is just like someone IV like
this is how my mind works. Like,
so you go online, click it, and just download it right to your arm.
That's very interesting. So you're saying that maybe part of the blockbuster demise is the
Cultural.
the culture
Yeah.
of convenience.
Well,
the cultural, it's the shift in culture that says, I live in Long Beach, and I always see guys on bikes now where you didn't see that a couple of years
Right.
ago, and they're doing deliveries. Now it works because Long Beach, the area I live in, is very commuter friendly and all that good stuff. So they're not going, but you have all the DoorDash, Postmate, right? All
Yeah,
that.
I worked for both.
E24.
Yeah, you dropped a few Taco Bells off.
I worked for both of those. Yeah.
Yeah. And so so people are going. It's not the old like I'm
Yeah.
gonna get Domino's. This is like these I don't know what companies are popping up that is
Yeah.
going. You not only don't have to get up and go out to see your movie, you can watch a movie, and we'll bring you your food
Yeah.
too. And then also Amazon exists. Amazon Prime. So
I don't think I went. Just this weird recording this early January. I don't think I went to a store this past Christmas season.
That's the way to do it, man.
I Amazon all of my guests. Yes.
And so we're going. Hey, we no longer have to really step outside for toilet paper or for a burger or for a movie. So I think this is almost indicative of the whole cultural shift
Yeah. 'Cause
that is happening, and we're going. Well, hey, let's go with it.
Right.
It takes a lot of, and we were talking about this before we started recording, that there were a lot of movies, Kyle, that you and I wanted to go see, but like we just didn't.
But, like, I just
Because it
probably
takes
won't.
up a lot of my day.
So-
Like, not just the movie itself, but like going to
Here-
the theater.
and
Like,
$13.
Here's
Unless you get the movie
here's
pass,
the
but,
interesting
yeah.
here's the interesting question here, because a lot of people too, they say like, oh, like you got to see it, like, cause when you say like,
gotta see it in the
I'll
theater?
wait for it to come out, like you got to see it on the big screen. Do you think that that companies would possibly generate more revenue, say if like, because you have like a smart TV that has like your apps or like Apple TV, things like that, if like Paramount or like Disney made an app to where like their movies just went straight to your TV, do you think more
That's-
people would watch it?
Disney's actually doing that. Disney's
But I mean
pulling
like
all their stuff.
to where like instead of movies going to the theaters,
Oh.
if like they went to like you watch them direct on Apple, almost like how
Right.
Netflix does it.
Right, and so I think a lot of these studios are probably going to start doing that, starting their own streaming services, because to your point, everyone's like, oh, you have to see it on the big screen. Except TV technology now is so good that like
Right.
I don't
the
think
difference between the projector in the movie theater and the TV is not that different in terms of digital. So you see a lot of like Tarantino is now going. I mean, he's only making like one more film or whatever.
Star Trek.
But he's right. But he's doing like a lot of these really like quote prestigious directors are only directing in film, so you have to see it in theater to get the original like
All right,
quality.
so
like they're going back to actual film, not digital film.
So and they can pull that off because of who they are.
Right, exactly.
But
Not
but I think to Kyle's app question is the thing that I think about now having a son is going, but see, like, it's not about seeing the movie in the theater, it's about seeing the movie in the theater.
Like the experience of
The
going
experience.
Well, it's like it's like going to a baseball game, right?
Yeah,
or it's like going to a
it's the experience,
sports, right? It's
but
the experience.
so as part of this cultural shift is you're losing out a little bit on the experience, and that's why I think even with Postmates and DoorDash and all that stuff, because you pay the extra fee, is well, I want the experience. So I'm going to keep going out to restaurants, but it is interesting, right? So there's the competition, and there's do we see the slow progression of that fading out? Is the question, or these become irrelevant? I don't think they do, because we're experience driven.
Right.
There is an experience on your couch, and I like that experience.
Right.
But there's something. It's the nostalgia. It's the let's go to the movie theater.
Do you think it will still be movies though, or do you think it will be things that only can be experienced live? Like I've noticed that in the last probably 5 years, maybe more, and it's not. And maybe it's been more like this. It's been like this more, but I feel like there's been an explosion of people I know going to multiple concerts a year. Right, music concerts, right? I didn't have, I know people have done that for a long time, but I feel like it's more part of the culture where people will drop hundreds of dollars on a concert ticket that like 10 years ago they never would have done that because they could listen to the album, but now that they've lost the quote the live experience, that concerts can never really translate to streaming.
All right,
as
so
well
here's
as
what,
that's my question.
Here's what's interesting about that, it's good though, is I actually for the last 15 years I was one of those people that would spend a significant amount of money to see and I've seen so many I've seen Stevie Wonder to the Chili Peppers to Damien Rice to George Clinton, the P-Funk All-Stars, to Kanye 3 times. I'm a concert junkie.
Right.
So I would do that. What I've realized is, where I thought you were going to go with this was live performances, is I feel like on a broader scale, because of plays like Hamilton,
Right.
that those things are resurrecting a little bit to the masses. But what I've also seen is the culture or access to these types of things like concerts are being pushed down to the same thing with fashion. Okay,
Right.
the old 11-year-old in us, yes, there was the few kids, but most of us didn't have a sense of, and because of the access to the world that we have, we continue to be able to. So I'm seeing 14 and 15-year-old kids go to these where I thought that was like an adult thing,
Right.
And now you have these country kids going to all these festivals, and I'm like, working with teenagers, you go, dang, we didn't do that when we were 15.
And I've also noticed the explosion of festivals. Like those, there were maybe a handful.
The EDM stuff.
There's
like a seedy culture.
Not that, but each scene had their one festival. So there was Warped Tour. There was each one had one, but
Rest
now
in peace, Warped Tour.
each music scene has multiple festivals.
Yes.
Right? And
Constant,
I guess what I'm saying is there's, since the movie is no longer the live experience you go to anymore, because you can get the same experience at home.
Yeah.
That's my question, because the other thing I just read, Broadway had a record year this year.
Well, that's a good point you bring up.
Live performance, because you can't replicate. You could film Hamilton, just the Broadway performance, but it's not the same.
So I don't want to see that.
What about in the case of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child? That's taking books and movies and translating it into Broadway.
So it's kind of going the other way that things have typically done. Typically it's taken Broadway and gone to. You've taken Broadway, gone to movie, but now you're going kind of the other way because people want to. So that's cause Travis, to your point, we still are experience driven. We still want those.
Yeah, and so I think I'm wondering, and you see things. It's like fashion. A lot of it's cyclical to a degree, or they'll take something from the 30s, and all of a sudden, there's this huge the way people are wearing their denim. And dressing in certain communities, fashion world is you're man, you guys look like you're from the 30s, the Depression era, and it's wow, that's a cool look because it's always been a cool look. But again, they're bringing that back, and I think at one point we kind of go, what else can you do? but how live performance has been around since forever.
Right.
And so it's
Literally
obviously
the oldest form of entertainment.
Yeah, and so you're going, oh, like we forgot that we would still enjoy this because all of a sudden the movie screen is, whoa, this is incredible.
And I wonder if it's also that we are surrounded by screens far more often now. So the movie is less novel.
Yeah,
right?
That's a great point.
So we don't need a screen. Like I literally have 2 screens on me right now. I've got an iPhone and a watch, right? That have that are digital screen, stuff like that. 50 years ago, there was 1 screen in town. Literally, it was like you had 1 theater, and that was the screen.
Yeah, my grandpa watched.
Or you had a
boxing.
backboard screen.
My grandpa watched. He was poor, so he watched boxing matches in Sears window.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. No,
I mean, that was out of poverty, but it was like kind of like.
50 years ago, the movie theater and the TV was so.
It was wow. It was
it was a new thing. Not everybody had it. But now it's like I literally can watch a movie on my phone that's probably the resolution is just as good as my local theater. So why would I leave where I am and go there? Right.
It's convenience.
Right.
So it has to be this experience.
It has to be something that I cannot do.
Well,
otherwise.
now I think even going to the movie theater, I expect recliners.
Yeah.
And I expect, I love.
And why are they even doing that now?
you
It's
expect
not
them
this
to put-
special theater 5 years ago. It's now everywhere.
But it's because I think as soon as one theater started doing it and making it accessible, everybody went, why wouldn't I go there then?
Right.
And so then everybody started doing it. And so now when I go to a theater and it's not that way, I'm like yeah, it's like I'm sitting in coach.
Yeah, you know what's funny is
I'll never
20 years ago,
Yeah.
20 years ago, even 15 years ago, the height of you are wealthy is you had a movie theater in your home, and now all of these multi-million-dollar theaters are being renovated to bring your home to the theater.
Yes.
Right? You need a couch. You need
beers.
If they put a couch in a fridge,
beers
if the theater
Right.
came out tomorrow and there was you could reserve your seat, it's a couch and it had a fridge right next to it. Would anybody go to any other theater?
Right. No.
No.
Right, well, so that's what I'm saying. So now, when I go to a
Yeah.
theater, I expect recliners. I expect there to be a bar, and I also expect it to be not that expensive.
Which says this is look at what they're doing. It goes. It's about the experience more than even I have to see it on the big screen.
That's interesting because Chris Nolan, director of the Batman trilogy and Inception and Dunkirk, he said that there are some. He was kind of poking at the Netflix model film, saying that there are movies that are meant to be experienced on the big screen, but on the opposite side of that spectrum, there are movies that aren't that can be just as good when not experienced on the big screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's funny. I have these things. I want to see that in the theater because I think there's something exciting about going
Right.
that I'm not even acknowledging because I don't think I really need to see it on the
Right.
on the screen.
I think it's
You know what I
it's
mean?
literally I just haven't been in a movie theater in a while.
Yeah. And
Right.
I should.
Just
Right.
I should go. I haven't been in one.
I think
Part of being human.
Yeah.
I think it is almost the singular genre that when people say you need to see that in the big screen is action. Action, grand
Big, yeah.
adventures,
Right.
your Star Wars, your Lord of the Rings, your your Indiana Jones,
So
where Keith is not you're not watching The Big Sick and going, oh man, I'm so glad I saw that on the big screen.
So glad I saw that in
I
IMAX.
needed to see a Kumail Nanjiani at 20 feet tall.
Yeah.
I just needed that. in my life.
they're never showing a rom-com in the IMAX 3D.
No, and I think so. That to what I was saying earlier. I think that's why you'll still see those films, but you'll only see those films as
Right.
blockbusters, right?
Right.
You're not gonna see the movie of the era of the prestige Oscar movie release in theater. I think is probably gone. We probably don't need to see if you go back, I don't know how long, it might have been 5 years, There Will Be Blood, right? You probably don't need to see that on theater. You can see that in your house easily, and it's the same movie. You know what I mean? Yeah. And
Same experience.
Captain America: Civil War is not the same on my home screen as
Right.
on the
Movies-
Right,
Yeah, it's,
right.
it's not.
Movies
It's
that-
still good, but it's just not the same.
Yeah.
Movies that aren't driven by flying and explosions can
Yeah.
probably just be watched at home.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Those films, and back to your original question, those films are never about plot. They're always about spectacle.
Yes.
So spectacle will always be something you see in theater. That will always be something you want
part
to
of
see.
theater.
Right.
Right,
Yeah, exactly.
right.
That's literally why theaters exist. It's a spectacle.
Yeah. And even to big sold out comedy shows, you have these, and then they're being released on Netflix. But Kyle, you recently saw Brian Regan, right?
Yeah,
in live, and that's always something like that'd be cool to go see. These guys are selling out big.
Right.
Like I can listen to you,
and that's the only time I feel like I missed it. Like I don't necessarily like as soon as one of the movies like I wanted to see that movie in theater, and if it's out of theater, I'm like I didn't miss it. I'll catch it later.
Yeah.
But like when someone like Brian Regan comes through, it's like that's what I mean. Like concerts, the comedy shows.
So I went to
I missed it.
I went to New York over the summer and saw Roger Federer play tennis. I know we were talking about movies, but to the point of the movie experience was for me is I love going to Laker games. I'm a sports junkie, but to watch Roger live, even I could have watched it in my home or on TV, whatever. And I went, man, this is so walking up to Arthur Ashe.
There's like a ritual.
There's an energy behind. There's a ritual behind. This is a different experience, and so it was kind of like, I want to go. I need to see this if I can. While I'm here, like, who doesn't want to go to a Game 7 or the Super Bowl?
Well, and I think that's what I'm realizing. That's why every once in a while I want to go to the movie theater because there's a ritual to it.
Yeah.
You get in line. That's even why in some way it's weird, but like this new like being able to buy tickets online
and reserve seating.
And that's great. I love it because like then I know I get the seat I want. But like I miss like standing in line because when we were kids, you had to stand.
I do not miss that.
No, but think about this. I'm talking about this. Like think about when you were a kid and you like had all of your group like, oh, okay, we're gonna meet in front of the theater. And you're standing in line, you're talking to your friends as you're buying the tickets, you go up, like you buy the ticket, you go, you know what I mean? Like there's this ritual to
how to sit next to the girl you like.
Right, yeah. There's like this ritual to it that I think that's probably more what I miss.
What was the old store warehouse music?
Warehouse music?
Yeah, where you stand in line. You stand in line for tickets.
Oh,
buy
yes. Yeah,
remember this?
That was it. I always did that at
Tower Records.
Tower Records,
like, yeah. You're right, yeah.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you were the first in line. They said, we're going to pick numbers, and then all of a sudden you're in the back.
Right.
Have you ever seen this thing happen? But like that experience, there's something, but when you really go back to the experience, you hated it.
Right.
But so going to the movie theaters is always a great experience.
Mm-hmm. And exactly. And so it's like I don't miss standing in line, but I miss that experience of like being with my friends.
The nostalgia
of like walking up and like and remember the first time you went to the movie theater on your own without your parents. Yeah. Right? And it's not to say like I think that's what I miss. I think that's what people miss, and that's why they still go to the theater. I think but when I don't need to be part of that experience and go see a small indie film. Like if I'm gonna just take the time, I want to do it big, and that's the things like Marvel and Star
do you
Wars.
think that these experiences are being limited by, like you were talking about sporting events? Like, do you think they're being limited by maybe distance and cost?
Because
certain people. I mean,
you mean like I'm not gonna go because it's $14 now?
Yeah, well, something like that. But even like with like me, like I love going to hockey games, but now it's reached the point where like a ticket to a Kings game is like $40, and then you go pay another $30 for parking. So why am
Hot dogs are expensive.
Yeah,
You also have to drive up to this.
Yeah, you also have to drive up to the
Yeah. At one point, it's you go to get tickets that are like decent, unless you're one of those.
But what I think it comes back to is this. I mean, I think there's other things we can talk about, but I think what it comes back to is that we're so used to convenience that if it's not easy, I don't want to go up. Like it's inconvenient for me to do it, so I'm not going to do it. Right?
Yeah.
If there's something that I want to see, I will pay the money. I will drive up there. I will find the parking. But like.
So
it's a convenience thing, I think.
So that like gives me anxiety sometimes.
Yeah. So Laker game is. It's not worth it if I'm up and there's a railing in front of me that I can. If I fell, I die. You know, that doesn't sound. Those guys who are up there, I don't know what's going on in their head, but they have decided that I'm a real fan. I go, that's weird. Right. That you have attached your identity to. I'm a real fan, so I'm willing to drive to LA through the traffic when someone gives me dope seats that I see Mayweather on the side of the court. You know, I get like your NBA players are walking by you. Yes, I want to go there, or I'd rather spend the money and do that for the experience.
Right.
Because like the Kings game, like a hockey game's good from up top almost.
Yeah.
Because you have this different view, and so you get lucky on that way. Your tickets are cheaper, but this kind of gap between. I don't think people. What I realize is people don't care how much things cost. When they don't care.
It comes down to
if they
what
want
you
it
really
bad
want.
enough.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's why Hamilton's sold out all the time. It's not a cheap experience. It's an expensive experience, and so
That's what I mean. I think if the experience outweighs
the convenience.
or anything else that's in my way of it, right?
Yeah, we always count the cost.
But to your point, Travis, the culture is increasingly telling me that convenience is more important. So it's increasingly harder for the event to overcome my genuine disinterest in it, talking to people.
So one of the things I think when you talk about what's happening in the shift from indie film is you tend to look at indie films as films that are going to strike a chord with you versus like Keith's saying like I got to see big Marvel movies or Star Wars because
Right.
it's a spectacle.
Right.
And so you take Good Will Hunting or you take Manchester by the Sea or whatever movies like that. You almost want a cozier feel.
Right.
And Silver Lining Playbook kind of
I'm
movies
gonna
like
put on my good socks.
Yeah.
It's like, babe, can I use your blanket? And so you kind of want to sit, and it's going to make you think. And It's
Right.
going to make you ponder life. And I think in our culture, in our society, one of the things that would create a shift towards that, where people are wanting, is because we live in such a fake
Right.
kind of image ridden, and I think people are desperate, whether they know it or not, is for the buzzword authenticity. And so those films evoke in you, and they make you
Right, because they feel authentic.
Yeah, they make you think things you're not gonna think watching Batman. Like anytime I see like a war action movie, I'm like, I'm gonna enlist, Right. and because it's a big spectacle, really. There's not like a moving. It's like you find yourself. I text you. I text Kyle last night and I said, why do TV shows make you think this is important? That's
you said like
film.
this is really happening right now.
Yeah,
I was
and
like,
think,
I'm watching New Girl.
and so there's I call it like with film or with music, more so musical therapy. So I like the indie films because I like to, but I also like Star Wars and stuff like that because it doesn't not make you think, but the bigger,
Right.
the grandiose,
You know what I thought about as I was walking out of Star Wars? Why do I still not have a lightsaber?
yeah, it's important.
30
thing.
years.
It's important.
How has the science not been developed?
Yeah.
You can put a man on the moon.
But to your, but to your
make a
point,
laser
Travis,
sword.
to your point though, like there's something about like okay, so I don't want to go have again. I'm going to use the meal analogy.
Yeah.
I don't want to go have a really nice meal shoulder to shoulder with someone else. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to be squeezed in there, just jammed into it. That's a cafeteria, and I want crappy food, right?
Oh,
That's
yeah,
what I want. Or
like-
like I want. But if I want an experience of the meal, I want to go to a nice restaurant where there's only a few tables and it's like intimate, or at home, right? So to your point, like if I'm gonna savor something, I don't want to do it in a crowd because there's nothing worse than that.
So if I'm gonna take out,
Right.
I don't want to get Mastro's takeout.
Right.
I don't want to get Fleming's
No.
Nick's on second
Exactly.
takeout, like a nice
Yeah.
restaurant. I go, nah, man, Jack in the Box is around the corner. That
Yeah.
seems like, or it has to a pizza, like something that is going
Yeah,
to
exactly.
be,
No one's-
because I'm going to be comparing the whole. It has to be just as good there as it is here,
Yeah.
kind of deal. What can I bring home? And so you have that. That's an
No
interesting-
one's postmating Ruth's Chris.
no.
You know what I mean? Like that's not happening.
Yeah, no.
And to your point, maybe those restaurants that are like Domino's, if you notice, like Domino's, there's the neighborhood pizza place is again going like the way of the buffalo, right? It's just there used to be 3 right by my house where you walk and there was like arcades, you spend a lot of
Yeah.
time in there, but there's not because people want to eat at home. But Maestro's, Ruth's Chris, like these fine restaurants, they're always going to be there. because people want to go to them. Right, so
Yeah.
that's sort of, I know it's a little bit flipped, but the idea is like there's
It's kind
certain
of a
things
weird-
there's certain things
Yeah,
that people will always
I'm-
want to do.
I'm a little
Right.
lost now.
It's like
we're talking about
the film going and seeing certain films, going there is like I want to go have my meal there.
Right.
Uh-huh.
I don't. So you're always gonna want to go have your meal there. Like I'd rather have it there. I don't want to take it home with me.
Right.
So I want to go see Star Wars in the theater
Because there's
it's
something there,
this big,
right.
So
I was tempted to do like I get what you're saying, but why don't you explain to the listeners?
I am tracking, but I don't think our listeners are.
So do you think we're coming back around on the idea that there is still, for both, there's a demand for original, well thought out video and blockbuster, but there's a time and a place for both?
I think so. I think what we're seeing is that maybe to Spielberg's point, the indie film is going to have more power in a way that's different from before. Like blockbusters are, I still agree with him on something that's like, we're not going to have a blockbuster a week in the summer like we did 10 years ago, right? I think that's done because there's also a fatigue with it, right? There's only so many times I can go see a building blow up.
It's not new anymore.
A year,
It's
right?
not-
A
it's
year.
not new
I just
anymore.
don't. And the other thing is, to Kyle's point earlier, there's got to be something else to it that I'm invested in. Like, I grew up with Star Wars. I'm always going to go see a Star Wars movie because there's something more to it than just the film, right? Marvel, like my brother and I grew up, not always like we read comics somewhat. I mean, I wasn't as much into it as others, but like we would play video games that had those characters. Like we're invested in certain characters in there and all that. But just some random disaster movie, I don't care. Right? I can go rewatch Independence Day, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Or Terminator.
Or
2.
Terminator, or like so like those sorts of things. I think that's what it's coming down to. Is like the work that a studio has to do to get me to the theater. I think is going to become increasingly not worth it for the budget that they're going to have to put behind it.
Well,
If you're going to have to spend $200 million to maybe get me to the theater, as a studio executive, I'm going to stop doing that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But if you're going to do something like I can make a Star Wars movie and I can guarantee that I'm going to make $1 billion, for sure I'm going to greenlight that film. Like that's going to happen every time.
well, even how like how we get music today. You know how
Yeah.
we experience more so through which forms of stream. You know, like
Right. Like the album release
my brother. Well, so
day
my,
is not as big as it used to be.
Yeah.
my brother and sister, they just went and saw Jay-Z's 444 tour, and he said, and we were at concert junkies, and he still is. I just don't get to go to as many, but he said best concert I've ever been to, and he said it was just him on a stage. It was like raw, uncut. I mean, he had his whole band and all
I
that
think you
stuff.
talked about this last episode.
But
Not
there's
2 episodes ago.
well, I'm talking about it again. Is that there was no like smoke and mirrors. There was no anyone swinging from the rafters. It was just, and I think there was a part of that, and maybe it's just because of where he's at in his career and who he is as a human being, and a man. Jay-Z's performance, everything was coming out in it, but it was like there was nothing distracting, and it was almost like what I heard from both of them was like I needed that.
Right.
Like I needed that type of experience, not like smoke coming, you know, and weird lights, and there was lighting, and but it was just him. There was no special guest. It was just him, and I think that indie shift or whatever is because it's becoming more popular. It's becoming more. Everyone knows. Like, have you guys seen the movie Once?
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was shot in 17 days in Ireland.
For like
and
$5,000.
Yeah, and it is a fantastic film.
it's a good
It's
movie.
such a good film.
Devastating too.
It's
Like,
brutal.
It's heartbreaking.
And so I love that because I go, well, that's actually helping
Yeah.
me feel life.
So here's my other
I
question.
think people want to feel
Yeah.
life today. They
Yeah.
don't want to
like,
run,
Toy Story 3.
like Toy Story 3, Kyle.
Have you guys seen Toy Story 3?
Yeah.
not.
So, but here's my question. Here's my other. I think this is sort of even coming back to that, to sort of combining Travis and Kyle's point. Like, and Josh, what do you think about this? Is that do we think filmmaking as a whole is getting a little bit more thoughtful? Because even the blockbusters that I've seen in the last 5 years, like 2 years maybe, have been just a little bit more either clever or thoughtful. They're not just like the storyline isn't. I'm not saying it's great, but it includes elements that you wouldn't have seen in a '90s blockbuster, right? Schwarzenegger is not nuanced, right? Like so, but I'm just saying like those movies are not nuanced. Whereas some of the ones that I've seen recently are they're a little bit more thoughtful and ask questions, even in the most basic way that Blockbusters didn't before. So, I mean, as a whole, are we shifting towards more thoughtful storytelling, even in the blockbuster?
I think so, because like even now in society, like we've reached a point where people are not afraid to explore their emotions anymore.
Right.
So, and I think that's translating into different mediums of storytelling,
Right.
including music and film, books, things like that.
I mean,
because those are, I'm using those as kind of like
Right.
looking at culture in general and why is this happening in the film industry, right?
Right.
And so you'd say like that even like we're now at a point where maybe it didn't used to have as much of a voice, like films with agendas exist more relevant in like pop culture nowadays.
Yeah, I think so. And I to Travis about the Jay-Z concert, like that's a thoughtful artistic presentation of Jay-Z.
Yeah.
10 years ago, it's like, well, how many explosions can we put in the show? You know what I mean? Like,
how many guys are going to be on stage?
right.
going,
And it's just like,
Call Michael Bay.
right, exactly. And that's even something like, again, someone like Michael Bay has fallen out of favor because he made spectacle movies, which he did a good job at that, but his movies didn't have the thought behind it that I think people started to want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
However, so there's always going to be shifts.
Right.
And to your guys' point, those things aren't going to go away because, and I go back to music, is I do like driving. I like driving to things that make me think. But every once in a while, I go to Power 106 because almost like I need some and I like to study music. So there's in culture and what's happening. I'm like, man, I don't understand what they're saying, mumble rap, right?
Right.
But there's like this good thing going on there. But I just go, I think we always need a little bit of slapstick or something to offset this.
Broad comedy, broad appeal. We always need broad appeal.
Right.
Yeah, and it speaks to the masses though too, because most people aren't listening to classical music while they drive. They just don't. Like the masses are gonna listen to Kiss FM, Ryan's Roses, and you're like,
well, that's why they've made like 13 Fast and Furious because there's a group of people that are like, that's just what I want to watch.
And you know what it does? It doesn't evoke thought.
No,
it doesn't evoke emotion except for when one of the characters dies. You know,
and there's just not even on screen, only in real life.
That's what I was trying to do. Like, it was like, whoa, like,
I'm just being honest.
That's what I was actually saying.
Yeah, exactly.
But like they're not watching it to like see like the relationship between Paul Walker and Vin Diesel. They're watching it because they want to see like souped up cars and strippers. Like if we're
they just want to see
that's
something
why
impossible. They want to see a car drive through a building, which happened. I didn't see it, but I saw it in the commercial.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, but that's true. Like, there's always this sense of, and honestly, so I'm gonna make a weird connection here. So the Hunger Games series was about this idea of, so there's this danger. There's a somewhat danger. It goes back to the Roman not Pax Romana. It was something like, it was basically one of the emperors said, to placate the masses, we're going to give them a circus and bread, right? Panem, something in Panem, right? And that's so Panem, the continent, whatever it is, the world of Hunger Games was basically based on that saying, like that the Hunger Games is predicated on this idea that entertainment will always sort of quash the critical thought of the masses, right?
Yep.
And the more spectacle it is, the more control you have over them. So the fact that we have less of that now, I think, means that we have a slightly more engaged populace, at least on some level. Is that? Would you guys think about? Would you guys think that's true on some some part of our culture is
or
a
at
little
least
bit more engaged,
pseudo engaged,
or trying to?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Like,
No, it's a good point.
You know, and I think you can say, with all its downfalls, is social media. I think because they're pseudo platforms and people don't really want to engage, and they want to, but they're confused. They don't know how, or they don't know how. They think that clicking, posting, reposting, talking about the End It movement on Instagram is gonna be the change. And that's just a piece of the puzzle to bring awareness, but then you got to do so. It was like the Coney 2012. It was like they did this experiment and they passed all these. No one went out and littered the streets with all that propaganda stuff. Or I didn't call it propaganda. I don't know. Is that what you would call it? But it's basically nobody did it.
I put up like 10.
Yet I'm sitting with the guy who did it.
I did, but I only.
Also,
but it was like go out and just do it all over the city.
Also,
and
the
like,
guy in the obey support obey propaganda hat.
Yeah.
What's funny is people see this hat and they're like, they think it's like a really patriotic hat.
Oh yeah, because
Well, that's our color.
That's
but
again.
That's for another time.
That's our next topic.
Yeah, there we go.
But so you kind of, I think culture or our society as a whole.
Yeah.
I think there's a desire.
I would say maybe that's the key.
I think there is. Yeah. Even with the Coney 2012 things, I think it just takes it takes such a unique individual to not be controlled by kind of what is for the masses, and they're like, well, yeah, but football's on.
Right.
So I'm not going to go actually try and help end human trafficking.
And I honestly I think a lot of what's happened in the last year and a half has really increased the amount of engagement. So I'm interested to see what movies look like in the next 5 years.
Just see where it goes, yeah.
Before the next sort of shift in sort of cultural and politics happens again. Just to see, because there's always an interesting, because art in that sense is almost always responsive rather than proactive.
Yeah.
And it's not always, but there's usually a good swath of art that is responsive to something rather than proactive against them. Like I think that's partly why maybe we might start seeing in the next few years less spectacle driven and more
a shift, right?
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and more maybe see less spectacle driven and more like introspection driven movies and art or something like, and music and stuff like that.
Try to move.
Yeah, or we'll go the other way, or we'll go the other way, and that people are so like so
we'll
overwhelmed
backwards
by the sadness that they're gonna want spectacle more. So
that's
I think we're gonna kind of go one way or
That's a
the
good
other.
point. Yeah. All right.
I'm just really concerned for Josh because this really this means a lot to you, man.
It does. It does. Thanks. This is like therapy for me, guys. Thank you.
I just love that we started with Star Wars and ended with Coney 2012. We went on a journey.
Yeah.
That's why we do this.
As always, you guys can find us on iTunes, Podbean, podcast.com, Google Play, Stitcher. Do you guys we have our Twitter is what?
Yeah, our Twitter's at @WAT_podcast, and follow us on Facebook. And I think we should probably start posting our next topics and ask for questions so we can start answering those.
I like it.
Send us
for
an
however
email.
many
Yeah.
4 followers we have. But yeah, I think
They're important.
We can start answering questions from you guys on the podcast because I think that'll be cool too.
Yeah. All right. Cool, guys.
Amen. Don't put amen in there.
Brink here from Super BS, talking about the things you know you love and the things you'd love to know. Join us weekly for a podcast about video games. Mostly. Oh, yeah.